What if a mother begged God to fall ill in place of her son with terminal leukemia? A metallic taste, copper and rust coating the back of her throat. Sarah grips the cold porcelain sink, knuckles bone white, nails nearly piercing her own skin. She coughs again. A dry sound, muffled against a wad of toilet paper. This time it's not just a pale pink stain. It's red. Vivid, alarming red. She stares at the mirror, but the face staring back. No, it can't be hers. It's a stranger's face. Sunken eyes, wrapped in purplish shadows. Her skin, once vibrant, now carries a pallid tone, almost gray, like parchment stretched dangerously thin over her facial bones. God, she's so tired. Not the fatigue that comes from lack of sleep. This is cellular weariness. Soul exhaustion. Then she hears it. From outside, coming from the downstairs hallway. The sound of a rubber ball bouncing on hardwood. Thump, dot, 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 thump, dot, dot, thump. The sound of small feet running. The sharp cry of got it. The sound of Ethan. Ethan. He hadn't run like that in 2 years. He could barely walk 6 months ago. The sound of his health, the vibrant energy that seems to make the house walls pulse, is the most beautiful melody. And the most terrifying she's ever heard. Because she knows, deep in her now aching bones, exactly what that running cost. She knows the price of that laughter. Sarah crumples the blood-stained paper. She shoves it to the bottom of the trash can, covering it with used tissues, with a cotton swab, burying the evidence. She turns on the faucet. Ice-cold water hits her hands, and she splashes some on her face, trying to bring back some color. She takes a deep breath. The air scrapes her lungs, which feel full of tiny glass shards. She closes her eyes for a second. 1, 2, 3. She forces a smile at the reflection. The smile is a grimace. It doesn't reach her eyes, which remain haunted, but it'll do. It has to. She opens the bathroom door, the hinge giving a slight creak. Ethan is there, at the foot of the stairs, breathless, his face red from effort, not fever. His brown hair, which had fallen out in thin, sad clumps, is now thick, damp with sweat on his forehead. "Mom, did you see? I threw it against the wall and caught it without dropping. First try." He's radiant. He's the very picture of life. Sarah leans against the doorframe, dizziness coming in a sudden wave that makes the hallway sway. She smiles back, the smile she practiced. "I saw it, sweetheart. You were amazing. Lightning fast." He turns and runs back to the living room, shouting about being a superhero. He doesn't notice her trembling hand on the doorframe. He doesn't notice her pallor, her shallow breathing. He can't notice. Never. That was the deal. That was the price of the bargain. And looking at him, so alive, so complete, she'd pay it 1,000 times over. 6 months ago, the world was made of beeps. The constant beep of the heart monitor, the soft beep of the infusion pump, administering poisons meant to cure, but that only seemed to destroy. The sharp beep when an 4-bag ran out, and the machine called the nurse. Sarah and Ethan's world had shrunk to the confines of a pediatric hospital room. Room 304B. The smell. That's what killed Sarah the most. A mixture of antiseptic, reheated hospital food, the metallic smell of blood, and the sweet, sickly smell of the disease itself. Leukemia. A clinical word cold that didn't do justice to the monster it was. A monster devouring her son from the inside out. Ethan, at 8 years old, should have been worried about trading cards, video games, scraped knees. Instead, he knew the name of every chemotherapy drug. He could tell the day nurse from the night nurse, just by the sound of their shoes in the corridor. He was pale. So pale his skin looked translucent. The bones of his wrists and ankles were like a bird's, fragile. Sarah slept in that blue vinyl recliner that squeaked every time she moved. She hadn't been home in weeks. Her world was reading the same 3 adventure books to him, in the same voices, faking an enthusiasm she'd lost months ago. It was holding the basin when chemo made him vomit. It was negotiating with him to eat 1 more spoonful of grape jello. It was watching helplessly as doctors came in, looked at the chart, gave sympathetic pats on her shoulder, and said phrases like, "We're trying a new approach. The prognosis is guarded. The blast cells are resistant. Blah, blah, blah." They didn't understand. This wasn't a prognosis. This was her world. This was Ethan. The night everything changed began like all the others, with silence. A heavy silence, oppressive, broken only by Ethan's shallow breathing. It was 3 in the morning, the Wolf hour, the hour when hope dies and fears take over. Sarah looked at her son. He looked so small in that enormous hospital bed, an oxygen tube under his nose, the central line in his chest, an ugly purple stain. He was there, but at the same time, he seemed to already be leaving. She felt panic rising, an ice that started in her stomach and climbed up her throat, suffocating her. The doctors had been clear that day. There are no more treatment options. The marrow didn't respond. Palliative care. Comfort. Comfort. What a joke. There was no comfort in a child's death. Sarah rose from the recliner, legs numb. She left the room, walking like a ghost through the dark, silent hospital corridors. She didn't know where she was going until she saw the sign. Chapel. She entered. The place was small, cold. It smelled of dust and old candle wax. There was a crucifix on the wall, some wooden pews. Sarah wasn't a particularly religious woman. She went to church on Christmas, prayed before bed as a child. But what she felt now wasn't faith. It was rage. It was a despair so absolute, so deep, that it burned like acid. She didn't kneel. She stood in the middle of the room and looked at the image of Christ on the cross. "You can't take him," she whispered into the silence. Her voice was hoarse. "You can't." No answer. Just the distant hum of a cleaning machine somewhere in the hospital. "I did everything right," she said, louder now, tears starting to burn in her eyes. "I took care of him. I prayed. I had faith. I gave him the vitamins. I did everything you asked." The silence was deafening. "He's just a boy," she sobbed, voice breaking. "He didn't do anything. He's good." She clenched her fists. "If you need someone, if you need a life, then take me." The idea came from nowhere, a spark of madness in the depths of her exhausted mind. "Yes." She approached the altar. "Take me. I've already lived. I had my childhood. I fell in love. I had him. I'm ready. Take my life. Take my health." She opened her arms, a gesture of defiance, of surrender. "Transfer his disease to me. I can handle it. I'm strong. I'll take his leukemia, every 6 cell. Put them in me. I know you can do this. Aren't you a God of miracles? Then make one." She fell to her knees, not in supplication, but from the weight of her own words. "I'm begging. This isn't a maternal sacrifice. It's a fair trade. His life for mine. That's unconditional love. It's the only thing I have left. Please, take me. Let my son live. I don't care about the price. I'll pay it. I just ... Don't make me bury my child." That prayer wasn't a request. It was a contract signed with tears on the cold chapel floor. She stayed there, on the cold floor, for an hour, or maybe 10 minutes. Time stopped. She felt no divine light. She heard no voice. She just felt the emptiness. Exhausted, she got up. She felt foolish, a crazy woman, screaming at walls. She returned to room 304B. Nothing had changed. The beep, the shallow breathing. She sat in the recliner, and for the first time in months, fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. She woke to sunlight hitting her face, and to noise. I'm hungry. Sarah blinked, disoriented. Ethan was awake. He was sitting up in bed, sitting by himself. What, sweetheart? I'm hungry, Mom. Really hungry. I want French fries. Sarah froze. Ethan hadn't been truly hungry in months. And I want to get up. This bed itches. The nurse came in for morning rounds, stopped in the doorway, and dropped her clipboard. The sound of plastic hitting the floor was what broke the spell. Ethan, the nurse said, voice full of disbelief. Hi, Sandra. Can I have that chocolate pudding today? Within 2 hours, the doctor was in the room. Within 4 hours, they were drawing new blood samples. By noon, the oncologist, a man who always seemed to carry the weight of the world, called Sarah into the corridor. He was pale. Sarah, I don't know how to say this. Her heart stopped. What? Is it wrong? Is he ... double quotes. I don't know what it is, the doctor said, rubbing his eyes behind his glasses. I've never seen this. What have you never seen? His tests, the blast count, it's gone. Gone how? Like, it's not there. His marrow is producing healthy cells. At a normal rate. No, more than normal. It's perfect. Sarah leaned against the wall. What does that mean? It means, said the doctor, laughing a dry, nervous laugh, that I have absolutely no idea. It means that, clinically, your son is in complete remission. Spontaneous. It's a miracle. The word hung in the sterile hospital air. Miracle. Sarah started to cry. Tears of relief, of joy so pure it hurt. She hugged the doctor, hugged Nurse Sandra. She ran to the room and kissed Ethan, who laughed and said, Mom, stop, it tickles. In the middle of all that joy, that euphoria that felt like a dream, she felt it. A stab behind her right eye. A sudden sharp headache, like a nail being hammered. She blinked, the sunlight suddenly too bright. She attributed it to crying, to exhaustion, to months of stress finally releasing. She was wrong. They went home a week later. A week of tests, exams, and doctors scratching their heads, using terms like 1 in a million and miraculous remission. The house felt strange. Too big, too quiet, without the beeps. Ethan flourished. It was like watching a flower in time-lapse. Color returned to his face. He gained weight. His hair started to grow. His energy was infinite. He rediscovered his toys, his bike, the backyard grass. Sarah watched it all with a sense of wonder that left her breathless. She had done it. Her prayer. The crazy bargain. It had worked. While Ethan flourished, Sarah began to wither. It started with the headache. Then came the fatigue. That's normal, Mom, Ethan said, now being the caregiver. You went 2 years without sleeping right. She smiled. You're right, sweetheart. I'm just old and tired. But the fatigue didn't pass with sleep. She slept 10 hours and woke feeling like she'd been hit by a truck. Her bones ached. A deep pain in her shins, her hips. The same pain Ethan used to describe. Probably just age, she told herself. Then the bruises started. Small purple spots appearing on her arms, her legs, for no reason. She'd bumped the table corner, and the next day, a dark, ugly stain covered half her thigh. She started wearing long sleeves. She stopped going swimming with Ethan. The water's too cold, honey. Her world, which had expanded with Ethan's health, began to shrink again. She found herself breathless after climbing 1 flight of stairs. She had low-grade fevers that came and went, leaving her drenched in sweat at night. She knew the symptoms. Oh, how she knew them. She had lived and breathed each one for 2 years. She had read every pamphlet, every medical website, every study. She knew what this was. It was the signature of the disease. It was leukemia, introducing itself, saying, I'm here. But how could she go to a doctor? How could she confirm it? Confirming would mean it was real. It would mean looking into Ethan's eyes and seeing fear return. It would mean explaining the unexplainable. No, she couldn't. She'd made a bargain for him to live. That didn't mean she had to fight. It just meant she had to pay the price. She started hiding. Hiding pain behind smiles and painkillers. Hiding fatigue behind coffee cups and excuses. Hiding bruises under clothes. Hiding fear deep in her heart. Life became a balancing act. An act of performance. In the morning, she was the vibrant mom, making pancakes, driving Ethan to school, cheering at the soccer game. At night, she was a woman crumbling, taking her own temperature, counting new bruises, tasting metal in her mouth. She realized that unconditional love had a dark side. It wasn't just about giving your life for your child. It was about living a lie to protect him from the truth. We often wonder how far we'd go for those we love. But the real question is, what would we do after having gone too far? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where the only way out was an impossible choice? Sarah looked at herself in the mirror and saw the irony. She had asked God to take his place, and God, or fate, or the universe, had answered, literally. She was now walking the exact path Ethan had walked, and she knew exactly where that path ended. The question is, how much of ourselves are we willing to erase to ensure the happiness of those we love? What's the limit of that trade? She sat on the edge of Ethan's bed that night, watching him sleep, his chest rising and falling, strong, rhythmic, healthy. She felt a wave of dizziness, cold sweat breaking out on her neck. The pain in her hips was almost unbearable. She wanted to lie down and cry. She wanted to scream for help, but she just ran her hand through his hair. "Sleep well, my sunshine," she whispered, voice weak. She got up and went to the bathroom, closed the door, turned on the shower as hot as possible so the steam would hide her tears. And it was there, in the middle of the fog, that she coughed for the first time and saw the vivid red against the white tile. The trade was complete. The bill had arrived. Autumn arrived with a burst of colors. Orange, red, yellow. For Ethan, it was the best season. The air was crisp, perfect for running until his legs burned. For Sarah, autumn was cold. A cold that entered her bones and wouldn't leave, no matter how many blankets she used. She lost her job. "We need someone who's 100%, Sarah," her boss said, with forced sympathy. "You've been missing too much." She just nodded. She didn't have the energy to argue. Her emergency fund was disappearing fast, on expensive vitamins and clandestine medical appointments she paid for in cash in a neighboring town using her mother's maiden name. The diagnosis was exactly what she expected. Acute myeloid leukemia. Aggressive. The same subtype as Ethan. The doctor, a man who didn't know her, shook his head. "Sarah, with all due respect, you waited too long." The prognosis ... double quotes. "I know," she interrupted him, voice low but firm. "I don't want treatment." "What? That's suicide." "We have protocols, chemotherapy. We can try a transplant." "No," she said. "I just want something for the pain." And for nausea. She couldn't. She couldn't go back to room 304B. She couldn't let Ethan see her wasting away under the drip of poisons. That smell, that beep, that was his past. It couldn't be her future. She had seen what chemo did. She remembered the weakness, the pain. If she did treatment, she wouldn't have 6 months of life. She'd have 6 months of survival. And she needed that time to be his mother. She needed to fake normalcy for as long as possible. The bargain wasn't for her to fight. The bargain was for him to live. The final act of her performance was approaching. It was Ethan's 9th birthday. 9. His 8th birthday had been celebrated with a smuggled cupcake and a battery-operated candle in the hospital room. But the 9th ... This one would be a party. She spent weeks planning. A bounce house, magician, hot dogs, all his school friends. She woke that morning feeling worse than ever. The world seemed to tilt to the left. The pain in her back was so sharp. She had to bite a towel, not to scream while getting out of bed. She took double the dose of painkillers. She applied makeup with a trembling hand, trying to cover the pallor and a yellowish tone beginning to take over her skin. "Mom, they're here," Ethan shouted from downstairs. "Coming, sweetheart." She went down the stairs, one hand on the railing, the other pressing her own stomach. The party was noisy, happy chaos. Children screaming, music playing. Sarah sat in a lawn chair, a fixed smile on her face. She watched Ethan. He was the king of the party, laughing, running, being a normal, healthy child. Each laugh of his was like balm to her pain. "Are you okay, Mrs. Bennett?" asked one of the mothers, looking at her with concern. "You look a bit pale." "I'm great, Amy. Just the usual exhaustion. You know how these parties are." Sarah lied, her voice sounding thin to her own ears. The dizziness was getting worse. The sun seemed to pulse. She knew she had a fever, a high fever. Cold sweat ran down her back, despite the crisp autumn air. "Cake time," she announced, voice coming out louder than she intended. She stood up. It was a mistake. The world didn't tilt. It spun. The green lawn rose to meet her face. The last thing she heard before darkness was Ethan's scream. "Mom!" She woke to a smell she knew all too well. Antiseptic and the beep. The constant beep of a heart monitor. No, 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 no. She tried to sit up. "Easy, Mom, easy," Ethan's voice, but it was different. Low, scared. She opened her eyes. She was in a hospital room. Ethan was sitting next to her in the blue vinyl chair. The same chair where she'd spent 2 years. "Ethan ... she gasped. Her mouth was dry. They said you fainted, that you're very sick." His eyes, so full of life that morning, were now full of that old shadow, the fear she knew so well. "I'm fine, sweetheart. It's just ... the flu. I haven't been eating right." The lie sounded pathetic. Ethan shook his head. He was no longer the 7-year-old who accepted excuses. He was a 9-year-old who had lived through war. "It's not the flu, Mom." He pointed to her arm. The 4 was there. And around it, a dark bruise, purple and ugly, spreading almost to the elbow. "I know what that is," he said, voice choked. "Ethan, please ... double quotes. They did blood tests." Sarah's heart stopped. The nurse was talking outside with the doctor. "I heard." "What did you hear, Ethan?" He looked at her, and the tears he'd been holding back started to fall. "They said the word they used for me. They said leukemia." The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the beep of the machine. The secret was over. "Mom ... double quotes," he sobbed. "It's not fair. Not you." Sarah reached out with a trembling hand. "Come here, sweetheart." He approached, but didn't hug her. He stood there, looking at her with an intensity that frightened her. "It wasn't a miracle, was it?" Sarah's stomach churned. "What do you mean, Annie?" "My remission. When I got better. Of course, it was a miracle." Ethan ... It wasn't. He yelled, making her flinch. "I remember, Mom. I remember the night before I got better. I was sleeping, but I woke up. You weren't in the chair. You took a long time, and when you came back, you were different. And the next day, I was hungry. And you had a headache. 8 years old, 9 years old. He shouldn't remember. He shouldn't understand. But he did. He had seen maternal sacrifice in her eyes for years. He recognized the scent. You asked, didn't you?" Sarah's tears fell. She couldn't lie anymore. She just nodded. a barely perceptible movement. Ethan's reaction wasn't sadness, it was anger. Pure, childlike, devastating anger. "Why?" he shouted, hitting the tray next to the bed. "Why did you do it?" "So you could live." Ethan ... "I didn't ask you to do this. I didn't want this. I wanted you. I wanted you healthy. I didn't care about being sick if you were with me." "You don't understand ... she whispered, the pain in her chest now worse than the pain in her bones. "I understand," he said, pointing to himself. "I understand that you gave me your life, and now I have to live with that. I'm healthy, and you're dying. This isn't a gift, Mom. It's a curse." He ran out of the room, sobs echoing down the corridor. The nurse came running in. "Mrs. Bennett, your pressure ... double quotes. Let him go," Sarah whispered, closing her eyes. The bargain had a cost she hadn't foreseen. Guilt. The guilt she was trying to spare him was now 1,000 times worse. She had taken his life, and now she'd stolen his innocence too. She spent 3 days in the hospital. 3 days of platelet and blood transfusions. 3 days in which Ethan refused to see her. He stayed home with the neighbor, Amy. When Sarah returned home in an ambulance for the palliative care she'd tried to avoid, the house was silent. She was placed in a rented hospital bed, set up in the middle of the living room, the same place where Ethan had celebrated his birthday. She lay there, staring at the ceiling for hours. Her body was giving up, fast. The disease in her seemed to be in fast-forward mode. It was as if she were living Ethan's 2 years of illness in 2 months. The bill was being paid with interest. That night, she heard him come down the stairs. He stopped at the living room door. She was weak. Her breathing was a wheeze. "Ethan?" She called. He entered the dark room. He no longer looked angry. He looked ... old. He approached the bed. "I hate you for doing this," he said quietly. "I know," she replied, voice a thread. "And I love you for doing this." He started crying again, but this time he took her hand. Her hand was cold, skin thin as paper. "It's not your fault, sweetheart," she whispered, using the last strength she had. "It is. I killed you." "No," said Sarah, squeezing his hand. "You saved me?" "I don't understand. I was dying, Ethan. From the day you were diagnosed. I was dying of fear, dying of sadness. There was no life in me, just ... pain. That night in the chapel ... I didn't ask to die. I asked to live. I asked to trade my pain, which was useless ... for yours, because I could carry yours. And you gave me a gift." "What gift, Mom?" "I gave you leukemia." "No, you gave me these 6 months. You gave me the birthday party. You gave me the soccer games. You gave me your laughter. You gave me the chance to see you healthy, to see you run. You gave me the peace of knowing you'd be okay. This isn't a trade, Ethan. This is a victory." She coughed, a wet, terrible sound. Ethan, instinctively, grabbed a tissue and helped her, cleaning her mouth. "The caregiver? You can't go," he whispered, desperation returning. "It's not fair. I need you." "I'm not going anywhere," she said, touching his chest. "I'm here. I'm the blood in your veins. I'm the air in your lungs. I'm every step you take running. Maternal sacrifice doesn't end when I close my eyes, Ethan. It only begins. You have to do one thing for me. Anything. Live for both of us. Live with such strength and such joy that it makes this trade worthwhile. Don't let my choice be a burden. Let it be your shield. When you feel guilty, run faster. When you miss me, laugh louder. That's your part of the bargain." Ethan laid his head on her chest, carefully. He could hear her heart. It was weak, beating irregularly, but it was there. They stayed like that for hours as the night deepened. The pain in Sarah's bones had disappeared. Fear had disappeared. She looked at the top of her son's head, smelling his hair. She had succeeded. He was there. He was alive. He was safe. The beep in room 304B was finally silent. The price was paid. The miracle was complete. Unconditional love isn't about defying death. It's about redefining what it means to live. It's not about what we lose. It's about what we choose to leave behind. And in the most impossible choices, we find the purest version of who we really are. We never know what we'd do in Sarah's place. But every day, we make small trades, small sacrifices for those we love. Stories like this remind us that the deepest love is often not found in joy, but in the pain we're willing to bear for another. Thanks for watching this journey. If stories exploring the limits of the human heart are what you're looking for, consider subscribing to the channel. We keep telling them here.